Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Turn around and say hello to somebody that you don't know. Say hello to somebody. Hello. Welcome somebody. Give somebody a hug. Give somebody a joint. This is the largest Harvest Fest we've ever had. When you call for the legalization of hemp and the legalization of pot, you are making a political statement that does not conform with the standard wisdom of the time. The criminalization of drugs only enhances the power of some tired old white males in Washington, D.C. who want to continue to control people of color, poor people, women, young people, and people who disagree with the way this nation is being run today. You see, it's all right in the United States to be an alcoholic. That's because George Bush and his cronies are alcoholics. It is all right in this country to consume legal drugs. Drugs that destroy the mind, the spirit, and the body because huge multinational conglomerates produce, manufacture, and distribute these types of drugs.
About what the pigs are doing, stuff like that. No offense, fellas, but it's just the way it is. Then into some Ohio hippies, they got their ban lifted for 3 seeds. Really ridiculous stuff. The punishment should fit the crime. Right now you can pistol whip somebody, you can rob a bank, you can do a lot of things, and you'll do more time messing around on marijuana than you will do like stuff like that. It's not right. I don't know how they can get behind enforcing those kind of laws. The word came down from above, from Big George or Nancy, I don't know who it was. Now to grab people, throwing them in jail, it's all bullshit, all the way along the line. They can't defend themselves as far as I'm concerned.
I think that, that the herb should be legalized because there is, as I say, a big difference between smack, crack, and smoking flowers. And I'm sick and tired of my friends being dragged off or their houses or cars being confiscated for a joint of marijuana when there are 500,000 deaths a year from alcohol and nicotine. I mean, come on, let's get real here. So what I suggest you do is let's legalize it. We could do it if we got together. We could do anything.
welcome to the Seattle Million Marijuana March, which is put on by the folks with the Seattle Hemp Fest. We're here to document the march, which leaves from Seattle's Volunteer Park and heads over to Westlake Park over in downtown Seattle. Looks like a crowd of about 300 people here at the start of the march. Maybe a little more. It's growing, so that's a good thing. And so we're about 4 minutes away from the start of the march.
Let's do it. Save your voices for when we get to a populated area. Yeah, let's go. Keep it slow.
Exercise our rights and put on a hemp fest, and we'll educate the youth. We'll soon rule the land, 'cause it's just a matter of time, and it's time to take a stand. 'Cause it's a losing battle, what the money can't win. Been going on for years, just keeps right on going. Like the Cold War with the commies, prohibition and the right. You can throw us all in prison, but you cannot win the fight. 'Cause it's a losing battle.
Ready to receive it. Now let's take back America. When the war is over and we've won it, let's remember how we've done it, so we don't have to do it again. So we don't have to do it again. There was a peace resolution and a peaceful revolution, and the peaceful solution saved America. And the peaceful solution saved America. A peaceful solution, a peace revolution. Let's take back America. It's a dream, so believe it. Now get ready to receive it. Now let's take back America. Let's take back America. There was a peace resolution and a peaceful revolution, and a peaceful solution saved America. And the peaceful solution saved America.
We are here today as part of a global voice that is screaming, we will not be persecuted, we will not be scapegoated, we will not be demonized or imprisoned any longer. This is a civil rights movement, and it's sweeping the world. As adults in a free society, we demand the right to make our own educated and informed choices on what we use for medicine, in industry, for spiritual purposes, and for recreation as adults. To our government, we are saying, we do not need you in our living rooms. Thank you. We do not need you in our bedrooms. We do not need you in our grow rooms. And we don't need you in our goddamn bloodstreams, that's for sure. We're saying, no more orphans, no more clear cuts, no more ocean of tears, no more pot war. We demand cannabis amnesty now for all prisoners. We're living in some wild times, man. Nobody has ever lived in a time like this in the history of humanity. Things are changing fast. These are times of major transition for human behavior. This change is manifesting in so many ways that it would be difficult to compute them all. One can only guess what the result of this gradual metamorphosis will be, but there's one thing that is certain to any discerning person, and that is, as a people, to have any kind of positive impact or effect on creating a desirable future for the generations that surely will come, short of global calamity, we got to come together right now. The people who will have the most successful impact on the world will be those who follow principles and ideals based in values that are morally and ethically right, that are sound and self-evident. Policies of governments which condone acts that are unlawful to the sovereignty and autonomy of the individual as a human being should not be considered acceptable or tolerable by the citizens of those governments. These include policies that strip rights of free speech, choice of religion, racial and sexual equality, and other rights that do not interfere with or prevent the rights of others. America has declared war on drugs. America's war is humanely unlawful. It's unacceptable. Unacceptable human rights violations across the board have resulted from the criminalization of otherwise decent, law-abiding citizens. merely for possessing, using, or selling only those drugs which the established status quo hasn't had the opportunity to cultivate some sort of financial monopoly on yet. But there's a lot of money to be made from the war on drugs. War on drugs. You know, it's not even possible. You can't do that. You can only wage a war on people. So the concept is logically flawed by design. We stand here on the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but we have more people in jail in the United States than any other country in the free world. The vast majority of them are in for victimless, nonviolent crimes. Many of them are first offenders. Previous to today, the very proclamation of a drug war was absurd. To have a war, there must be two opposing sides, both taking some casualties. It would be more accurate to call the previous years a drug massacre. By demonizing, by criminalization, people who choose to recreationally use or sell or buy or manufacture substances not approved by the government, we cannot defend ourselves, lest we risk arrest and incarceration, the loss of our job and our home. Nobody has statistics on responsible recreational users of substances because those people aren't creating any recordable problem in their lives or in society. The emergency room does not receive the folks while they're casually kicking back on their sofa, driving the remote control. My admittedly radical leftist claim of cultural genocide of sorts, I believe, is qualified by the gross discrimination against and deliberate... I'll try. It's a long speech. I'll try to slow down. Deliberate scapegoating of people who use illicit drugs, even marijuana, unarguably the mildest drug of all, and by most definitions, an herb, not a drug, an herb. One marijuana felony, like growing 100 plants or more, will result in the loss of all welfare and other public aid, student loans and Pell Grants, public housing, GI Bill. Also the forfeit laws. They're not forfeit laws, they're seizure laws. Forfeit means you voluntarily gave it up. They're taking it. House, car, bank account, computers, they'll wipe you out, man. It can result from one felony marijuana arrest. Mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines prevent judges from stopping 20 to 30-year sentences for marijuana offenses with no parole possible. Rapists, pedophiles, murderers, for some reason their crimes are not worthy of such punishment, and in most cases they get much less sentences according to our law. The drug massacre is over. Now with the vast network of very sophisticated and dedicated activists, many of them family members of prisoners or ex-prisoners themselves, there's a formidable foe to the phony, unwinnable catchphrase war on drugs. There is a worldwide movement of opposition based in humanitarian ethic and common sense, based in compassion and seeking an all-out total war, as we are, on addiction, poverty, and abuse. That's what we need to fight.
Here is our show and tell, our sharing for tonight. This first thing is a specific medicine container. You see it says American hemp. It says it's great. I'll read the label. It says great for nervous depression, irritation of the genitourinary tract, painful micturition, and or use for scalding, burning, frequent low mental conditions, wakefulness. This is just recommended for just about everything, and it's got a date on the back. It says American hemp is considered an anodyne, hypnotic, antispasmodic, producing sleep even when opium and morphine fail. Efficient in delirium tremens, which is what alcoholics get, infantile convulsions, and fevers, neuralgia, gout, rheumatism, low mental conditions, insanity, and inflammatory conditions. It's often preferable to opium and where opium disagrees. So that's what it says on this jar right there in tiny letters. I read it. Then this one is from a currently operating company, Park Davis. This is in solid powdered extract. And you see it has about half of the containers are still in here. This is from 1910. It says Indian Cannabis on this little label in the back. And it's a Park Davis product produced in Detroit, Michigan. It is powdered hashish, or keef, we often call it, but they call it powdered extract of cannabis. Right next to it is another powdered extract of cannabis. Let's get it away from the leaf a little bit. There we go. Oh no, back the other way. There, that's better. So this one's from Eli Lilly, and I have a series of Eli Lilly products here that are going to the Cannabis Museum in Athens, Ohio here in short order. But this is a specific powdered cannabis product. Then right next to it from the Merrill Company is also a powdered extract of cannabis. All three of these jars were made to hold 1, 2, 3, an ounce of cannabis. In fact, this one even says right on the back, 1 ounce. So you can see this one's empty. This is the only one that has some of the contents in it. Right next to it here, maybe you can close in a little bit on that. This is chlorodyne. Chlorodyne was a medicine for pain and sleep, and it's also from Eli Lilly. It is cannabis, morphine, peppermint, chloroform, and caspicum. So this has a lot of different things in this chlorodyne from Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. And so it was used for pain and spasms. And so it, like again, I said again, it has morphine, cannabis, capsicum, chloroform. This stuff will just knock you out, basically. Then right next to it, we have another Eli Lilly product, cannabis tincture number 17. Eli Lilly, Park Davis, these guys each had over 24 different cannabis products that were slightly different in the extracting agent and the contents and concentrations. So this was their number 17 cannabis tincture. Right next to it, here we have number 96. You see it says poison. They thought it was poison for a while. This bottle is from the 1880s. They thought you could overdose on it. Well, it was 1 ounce of cannabis extract in 9 ounces of alcohol. That's what it says on there. So this is a number 96. And right here next to it, a little bigger version of number 96, again from about 1905, about 110 years old here. And so then right next to it we have one from 1870. And this one is particularly interesting. It has a label here on the back. It isn't in real good shape. This is Cannabis Indica USP. On the back of it here, it says, not poisonous according to the best authorities, though formerly regarded so. It's an antispasmodic, analgesic, anesthetic, and narcotic. It's an aphrodisiac, specifically recommended in spasmodic conditions of and painful ailments for preventing rather than treating migraines, almost a specific in that form. Insanity peculiar to women. In other words, menstrual problems. Diagnosed by mental worry or moral shock. So if you're a woman on PMS and you have mental worry or moral shock, this company thought this was the thing for you.
Like that.
It's an it goes on and says, in the best known hypnotic and delirium tremens. Again, if you're an alcoholic, this would help you get off the booze. Its anodyne power is marked in chronic metriitis and dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea, again, is menstrual pains. Used with excellent results in habituates of opium, chloroform, and cocaine use. So they also recommended it to get off opium, chloroform, and cocaine. In hysterical cases, as claimed by chloral or opium, it's acting especially well. So that's what Eli Lilly said in approximately 1870. Then right next door we have this cough and cold balsam, and it is alcohol, chloroform, and antimony tart. And so it has a bottle inside, and this nifty little thing here. Here is the bottle. And so maybe we can close in on that a little bit. Then it has this insert that is actually printed in 13 different languages. You can read it in 13 languages. In case you're, newly immigrated here, this was a medicine. This is from 1885. It was produced in Pennsylvania, Plymouth, Pennsylvania. Right next to it, we have our regular hemp flame of freedom. This is hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. This is next week's wick right here, folks. And this is some raw hemp oil. And this is after we've had the hemp wick in there and burning it. This is just a little shot glass with some hemp seed oil in it, and we light it up. So this is the reason that marijuana is illegal. It's not a coincidence, I believe, that an Israeli-Canadian energy company called Adira Energy, again, you can look them up, A-D-I-R-A Energy.com. This Israeli-Canadian oil company, I've been talking for years that the only reason that marijuana is illegal isn't really about drugs, it's really about money and power and the continued centralization of economic and political control. And it's specifically about energy and fiber. So these are the reasons marijuana is illegal. They don't want us to have this naturally centralized resource. They want us to have to buy it from them. Does that sound familiar to you? Anyway, here's our hemp ball of twine, and this is hempcrete. It's limestone powdered down called quicklime, and it's broken up and it's stronger than concrete. And then this is a little hemp stalk. We like hemp stalks around here, don't we, Eric?
Yes, we do. Larry.
All right, so that's the end of our show and tell for tonight.
This is Mr. Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Well, come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free. Some men are born to lead, some men have destiny. Some men plant the seed, and some men set it free.
Here we had 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine and go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give them a $5 fine.
Wow, that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
It was a fine line.
So come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free.
Jack here and Ed Adair.
Well, hi, guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour?
One man said we must hear. One man's voice was clear. One man heard the call. His vision speaks for all.
The #1 plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed. That somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the #1 thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. But it was a slow process.
So come open your eyes with me, and come see what you can see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. Come open your eyes with me. It's time for you to see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no
long as people are just being locked up for cannabis, then we've got to change those laws, and we've got to restore hemp for energy, folks. That's the real key here. The whole reason marijuana was prohibited was to stop this, to stop hemp fuel being used. Now, this is hemp seed oil with a piece of hemp twine here. This is next week's wick right here. And you can burn this in any diesel engine with no conversion to the engine today. You can pour that right into your diesel engine and turn the key and drive. And that's the reason it was made illegal. It's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist, ruling class that have brought us hemp and cannabis prohibition.
I'm going to do a Lowell George song. It's a trucker's favorite.
One of mine, too.
All right, here we go. Warped by the rain, driven by the snow, drunk and dirty, don't you know that I'm still, Lord, I'm still. Out on the road late last night, I seen my pretty Alice in every headlight. Alice, Dallas Alice, I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, dipping every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven by the back road so would not get weighed. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, you show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving. Kicked by the rain, driven by the sleet, had my head stoved in, but I'm still on my feet, and I'm still, Lord, I'm still. Smuggled some smoking folks from Mexico, baked by the sun every time I go to Mexico. And I'm willing, I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, doing every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven by the back roads so I would not get weighed. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, you show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving.
When I'm watching the Super Bowl and I see that they're saying people like me are, in addition to like mowing the lawn and having some nachos, also murdered a family in Colombia, I take offense to that. Who else takes offense to that? I did not murder a family in Colombia, and it is the people that are propagating those ads that are responsible, and they're going to keep on. They're going to be. I can't even imagine how many families are going to die because of our drug war in Colombia.
War on drugs? Give me a break, man. Attention, drug war generals out there. We are fighting back, man. And unlike Unlike you drug war generals, we are non-violent. We are peaceful. You cannot and will not stop us because we are not criminals. We are Americans. We're going to make that mean something. And we're about to take our country back and put it in the hands of the people who founded this country. The hands of the people whose blood and sweat and tears and backs paved the way for us to be here today. The problem is that in our justice system, we've got too much emphasis on the system and not enough emphasis on the justice. And I ain't gonna make it, man. That's exactly why we're here today at Seattle Hemp Fest. That's why you came out, and we'll be vocal day after day after day, year after year after year until we've overcome and justice finally prevails.
What kind of response did you get when you went public? Did you get harassed? Did the police department come down on you?
It was amazing. The way I describe it and have described it for many years is it rained marijuana on our house.
Wow.
The people, the article that I read about finding it on the doorstep and I laughed was totally true. We found it in brown paper bags on our doorstep. We got it through the mail. Postage paid. We also got it in the mailbox. We live in a rural area and we have a rural mailbox. Found it in the mailbox, found it on the back porch, and had many people deliver it to us.
Wow. Okay, and we'll be right back after this. We're talking with May Nutt today, and May, now what I understand is that you began a crusade in your state to re-legalize hemp for medical purposes that brought forth on October 10th, 1979, a history-making policy within your state. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
Could you
true.
share that?
We, when we decided to go public, we decided that we needed to be legal. And so we contacted the legislature to see if there was a possibility that Michigan could do this, and found that someone else had been there before us, and it was in the process. So we joined the process. Keith went with us in early October. And then again, late in October, he was very ill, and we went without him. And it went 100 to nothing in the Senate, and I've forgotten what the count was in the House. But yes, indeed, it did go. And
now, does that mean that in Michigan, if the people can start using it for medical purposes?
Doesn't mean that. Once the bill is passed, then it has to be signed.
Okay.
And it was signed on October 22nd, 1979 by the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan, and that was the day our son died. So, I have to get my breath. He never received legal marijuana. And then after that, it was over a year before the state received the marijuana. The federal government stands in your way, and they're not cooperative. But Michigan and 33 other states did pass marijuana laws, and indeed the area we live in received the marijuana. In fact, I received it personally from the state. And the doctor that took care of Keith had encouraged me to work on the legality of it, and he got a license. And as time went on, he said to me, May, I can't do this anymore. And I was hurt. And
now, from what I understand, too, not only was the government slow in getting the hemp, the marijuana into the state, but during this time while it was coming in, you were also getting hemp to other patients and other people within the
not
community.
after it got legal.
Okay.
Not after it got legal. Before it got legal. When Keith died, we had a great deal of marijuana.
Okay.
And I knew what it would do, and I would not throw it away.
Okay.
And I did not play games about it. And yes, then the doctor said to me, he would send me patients, I used to call them our patients, and say, you know, if someone was saying, doctor, I'm going to quit, dying can't be worse, and he would send them to me. And
well, now, didn't you feel like you were breaking a law? Now, I understand that people of your generation have an ingrained thought when it comes to hemp, to marijuana.
Brainwashing, it's called.
Yeah, that because it's illegal, it shouldn't even be discussed, let alone considered. And now yet you're...
Okay, I'm in a different category. Yes, it's illegal, and I frowned on my children using it. But we're talking about life and death. We're talking about people. It's not even a quality of life, which is important, but it's life and death. And people, there are many people who will die, and I know of several who have survived because they were able to use marijuana. A dad told me just this year, that his son had cancer, and he refused to take the treatment. And so one of his buddies got him stoned, so he was so happy he really didn't care what he was doing, unaware that it could help the nausea. And so he continued his treatment, and the young man is alive and well today.
Now, you shared with me that there was a Vietnam vet who was paralyzed.
I talked to him this year. Mm-hmm.
And could you tell that?
Okay, he's a representative of disabled veterans in Southern Illinois. And he told me he had several vertebrae damaged during the war, and he did some rehab in a hospital in Colorado. And before he left, his physician took him aside and said, "I do not want you to take the drugs that the Veterans Organization or the hospital is going to prescribe for you." He said, "I want you to take marijuana, use marijuana, smoke it." And the young man, he said he got to he was incontinent with his bladder and his bowels and was paralyzed. He said in 5 years he got so he could walk 5 miles.
Wow.
He could also take a few steps without a walker, and that his incontinence was under control.
Now, I understand that AIDS sufferers, people who are dealing with that disease, can find relief with
Absolutely.
with hemp.
There's an organization called MARS, Marijuana AIDS Research Service, and it's to help them apply for legal marijuana. It's not going, well, it's going better than others have, but it's very slow. There's so many of them, and the government is saying they don't have the resources.
And you commented that people with epilepsy.
Epilepsy. I did a national television thing a few months ago, and I received many, many phone calls from people with various illnesses. And one of my recent one was a young woman with epilepsy, and she was from New York State, couldn't drive because of the seizures, and had tried the prescribed drugs, and eventually somehow someone talked her into smoking marijuana. And she was seizure-free for 2.5 years. And if I remember right, she said 2 years in her state and she could get her driver's license back. So she was back driving.
Now, when this is used for medicinal purposes, people think that you should, is that just smoking it? You just go into the hospital room and say, "Okay, doctor, I want a joint or two," and you have your friends bringing it off the street and fire it up. Is that the only way that it can be used?
No.
Is that the best way? You know,
it's the fastest way.
Okay.
But for someone, a cancer patient, I've talked to many, you know, and they have cancer because they smoke tobacco, and they simply cannot tolerate any other smoke in their lungs. So we can make brownies. We can make suppositories by making the butter and putting them in a capsule. And the nurses told me for children, poke holes in the capsule so that you don't have to wait quite so long for the capsule to dissolve before the ingredients get in the bloodstream. And also tea. And I'm thinking that tea, for people my age, you know, we could drink an herbal tea without a blink of an eye.
Okay.
And I was told this summer by a man who was dying of cancer that the pain, the nausea, and the appetite, and that the tea got into his system in like 5 minutes. Now some of the other things, the brownies and the suppositories, of course the suppositories are wonderful because you don't throw them back up again.
That's true.
And the digested foods brownies and such.
Now, you said children. Now,
Yes.
realizing that hemp is an illegal substance for Americans to use, it's kind of unusual to hear someone encourage that we give this to children.
If
now.
you have a child dying and they are giving you no hope whatsoever, and this is hope, I have no problem with that at all.
Do you know of any children that have benefited from this?
I know of one child, to my knowledge, and this was about 10 years ago, and the child was so emaciated, and there was simply no other place in his body to poke a needle, and they had to stop treatment. And to stimulate his appetite, they made him brownies and teas, and he was able to go back and continue his treatment, and to the best of my knowledge, the child is alive and well today.
Wow, very interesting. We'll be right back after this.
We thought we were. I distributed what we had, and then when it became legal, I no longer, well, I didn't have any more, and I didn't try to get any more, but it was legal. And so I still worked with the doctor, but I didn't work directly with patients using the marijuana. But eventually he stopped using it, and I was angry and hurt. And he said to me, May, I cannot spend more time doing paperwork than I do taking care of patients, and I have to discontinue using it. And we had 34 states where it was legal, and now every doctor in every state, not all of them received it, but the bills are dormant because the federal government made it so difficult and horrendous for the doctors to use it.
You know, what I understand too of people who have glaucoma and are applying for
Right.
The hemp for their medical
Absolutely.
purposes. From what I understand, the paperwork takes anywhere from a year to 2 years.
Yeah,
Just-
it's horrendous. And the Mars project is attempting to, they have cut it down until a doctor can do it in about 15 minutes.
Now, from what I understand, you also testified before the DEA in 1988.
I did indeed.
And now, what came from that, and who did you speak with when you were there?
Oh, I testified in front of a Judge Francis Young, very intelligent man. And the feeling of the people that I was working with, Normal, and he was going to brush it off.
Okay.
We were going to finish our testimony, and 15 minutes later he was going to say, forget it. He didn't do that. He agonized over this for a long time. And he was only to make a recommendation to the head of DEA. He couldn't make the decision. And he recommended wholeheartedly. And he had heard people all over the United States from all different kinds of illnesses, and said, in effect, for God's sakes, help these people.
And what kind of response did he receive?
The head of DEA, in effect, said, drop dead.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're stupid.
Okay. Now, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I was wondering, you commented that people of an older generation than what I am have a problem at times being able to restructure their thinking on this plant. What do you have to say to them?
Okay, we were told, and I came from an era that if my government told me, go out and stand in the middle of the traffic, I'd probably do it, because they would never tell me anything that was harmful. And it has taken me a long time to realize this is no longer true. Maybe it never was, but I thought it was. And so therefore, it's difficult. You just, it's like a religion. You may go away from the religion that you were brought up as a child, but it's always there. And I'm not sure that I would ever be able to smoke a marijuana cigarette.
Okay, now you've talked about Mars, and there's probably a variety of people who are watching this show who'd like to have the chance to find out more about your organization, or the organization, Mars.
It's
address and phone number, please.
I don't have it. It's
right.
through ACT, Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics, and they're based here in Washington, D.C. I do not have an address or a telephone number, but I'm sure that through Normal, High Times has an ad in it. there are many places that they can contact them.
Any final comment to our audience?
Oh, go with your gut feeling. If you think you're right, go for it.
Thank you very much. It has really been a unique learning experience having May on our show. And I hope that the information that she brought forth is something that you can digest and share with people around you and you grow from. There are a lot of people out there who are suffering medically and need the benefits of the medicines that are derive from the hemp plant. We encourage you to write your congressmen, we encourage you to write your senators, and we encourage you to become more vocal in your community to bring this message forward. Thank you very much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you very much, May. I'd like to have you back on the show.
Thank you. I'd love to come back.
I'll start with where I represent. I represent South Jackson County, everything from the Green Springs through Ashland, Talent, Phoenix, into Jacksonville, into the Applegate Valley. I'm the House Democratic co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which is the budget committee in the state. And I have favored legalization for many years. I think prohibition has not worked. We've had decades of evidence that says prohibition does not work, and it's counterproductive. But what really spurs me on now is having spent the last 3 or 4 years on the budget committee, signing my names to budgets that cut education for our kids, that cut health care for seniors, that make our communities less safe by cutting back public safety programs. I can't in good conscience continue to do that work of trying to rebalance the state budget through cuts when I know there is a source of revenue that is reasonable, that is rational, it's the right policy choice, and it's the right economic choice for our state, and that's the legalization of marijuana and the legalization of industrial hemp. And I'm not sure if all of you followed this, but in 2009, the legislature passed a bill confirming that the state of Oregon's policy is to have legalized industrial hemp in our state. The federal government still says we cannot grow it. But we've passed legislation on industrial hemp that as soon as the federal government comes to a rational decision on that and allows the production of industrial hemp, our state will be ready to move into production of industrial hemp. And that proposal, just so you know, passed almost unanimously, Republican and Democratic, urban and rural. In fact, the representatives and the senators from Eastern Oregon were some of the most enthusiastic backers of having industrial hemp as a crop for our state because it just makes sense. It makes economic sense for jobs in their community. It makes economic sense for the state. So we will get there on industrial hemp, and we are going to get there on legalization. I can liken this to the effort through the initiative system of when women got the right to vote. Oregon was the first state to put that on the ballot and have it passed by our people. It took 3 times to get on the ballot, 3 times on the ballot to finally pass and become the law of the state of Oregon. This effort has been building, and we have people here who have worked on it for many, many years, has been building for many years. We're at a point now where we're making a major leap forward by having this on the ballot for the voters of Oregon to give their view on. They will render their verdict next Tuesday. We'll know what it is. And if it passes, which I sincerely hope it does, we'll work with it to make it work. We'll keep putting pressure on the feds to make sure that becomes the law for the state of Oregon and hopefully influence the rest of the country. It's on the ballot in Washington. It's on the ballot in Colorado as well. We will watch how those elections turn out as well, and we'll build off what happens here on Tuesday no matter what. But I just wanted to be here today to again express my strong support for legalization, my strong support for industrial hemp as well, my strong support for ending prohibition, having rational drug policies in the state of Oregon and the United States of America to move in a totally different direction. And the last issue I'll touch on is one that Lori, I think, called the press conference here today to emphasize as well, is expansion of the medical marijuana program to include post-traumatic stress. And that to me is a reasonable and again totally vital step for the state to take. We have people in the state right now. Oregon can and should be a leader in the research of how marijuana impacts ailments across the board. We have the growers here, we have the medical community here, and we obviously have the people in need here. We should put that together, Put the people who are suffering ailments together, the people doing research on marijuana and the growers, and come up with the data so we can say with great confidence that someone who is suffering from PTSD with this strain of marijuana or that strain of marijuana can expect certain results. Someone with chronic pain with this strain of marijuana or that strain of marijuana used in this way can expect this results. The medical marijuana program, in my view, needs to be professionalized, and we need to make sure that it's having the best possible outcomes for the patients who are on it. And with that, I will just turn it over to you.
My other organization is VOTE, Victory Over the Enemy.
Hey, I like that.
Which is the unregistered voter in the state of California.
Oh, okay.
What we have to do is upgrade our standard of voting. We can send people to the moon, and we're sending satellites into outer space. I believe that our system of voting in this country is very antiquated, very old. It needs to be renewed and revised and updated. I think that the voting should be more important than Christmas.
Okay.
I think that we should spend a lot of money on educating the people. Look at it this way. The government is in favor of the United States public to vote. I feel that it's our duty to show them or to find a way to help the government find ways to help people vote. And I think with television, the telephone, computer optics, and satellite dishes and all this technology that we've got, we should be able to sit home and vote on all these important issues. And I'm sure the government wants everybody to vote. It's our constitutional right, and they stand behind it. I think that they should get behind us and help us to get out there and make voting a very important issue. It is important, even if you're not in favor of, say, the California Marijuana Initiative or the Hemp Initiative, that's fine. We would love for you to come out and speak your opinion. We want you out there voting. We want you to take an active part in this country. If you do, then I think this will solve the problem.
I want to thank you guys for watching. We're going to go out on another great song by Mr. John Coronet. We'll be back next week and help us restore hemp.
Yeah, restore hemp.
Another chapter as we turn the page. We exist within a Ukraine. I know that freedom's heard around the globe. Just where our future lies will nobody know. Oh, let's make the best of it now. 'Cause you never know when the sky will fall. Maybe the moon will reach the earth one day. We're not the same race that we used to be. Can't you see? Now the next time that you fall in